Right, well, welcome to this extraordinary Diocesan conference. Without further ado, I'm going to ask His Grace the Archbishop of Wales to give a presidential address.
Good, thank you, Archbishop Paul. Prynwyd da, croeso cynnes I unwaith eto, rai sydd wedi dod ar ôl y gwasanaeth braf cael eich cwmni. Dwi'n mor ddiolchgar am eich presenoldeb yma gyda ni heddi. This is an emotional day for me, not because I love and adore you, which I do, but because the last time I think I was here was when I was squished about 400 yards that way. Not to be repeated. The reason why I wanted to draw us together, there are a number of things I want to do in the time given to me. The first is essentially practical, to talk about the period between now and when we elect a new bishop for this diocese. To talk a little bit about the province, provincial work in the longer term, but most important of all, before I pray for us at the end, I want you to know the absolute and unboundaried support of the Church in Wales for you as a diocese. I want you to know that even though you are a diocesan family and part of something that is special in this part of Wales, you belong to a bigger family, and your bigger family, through me, expresses its love, support, and care for you. And you're not alone. And it's important that you heard that, which is why the most important thing we have done today is already completed. We have gathered at the Lord's table. We have reminded ourselves who we are and what we are about. Dyn ni yma, nid o hyd, fel y mae'r can yn dweud, dyn ni yma oherwydd Iesu Grist, i addoli ein Duw, ac i sicrhau bod teyrnas Duw yn blodeo yn ein plith. So, soon, the responsibility for episcopal life within this diocese will pass from Bishop Joanna to me. I think the language that is used is that I am responsible for the spiritualities. I've never been quite sure what that means, I have to confess. But what it does mean is that I will be a bishop with you and for you for that period of time, in order to express the episcopal ongoing care for you. It's my intention to continue with the arrangements which have been in place now for some time, which is commissaries will undertake the tasks that I would normally do as bishop. So things like licensings and inductions, things non-episcopal, ordinations and confirmations, will be in the hand of those very capable figures that you know with whom you work each and every day. And I'm so grateful to them, and of course to the Dean and to Mones and to the lay people who have ensured that the work of this diocese will continue and has really continued in the period when Bishop Joanna has been so unwell. So it was really good. I had the opportunity to be with Bishop Joanna. As bishops, we said farewell to her. We had an evening with her. She was in good heart, and she and Adrian wanted to express their love to you, and also are looking forward now to a new start, a new journey in their life in Cornwall. Please do continue to hold them in your thoughts and in your love and in your prayers. So I suppose it's a holding pattern for a while until October. And in October, the Electoral College of the Church in Wales will gather. And again, we will gather at the Lord's table. We will gather to discern whom God is calling to love you and to serve you and to lead you into the next part of God's plans for you as a diocese. It really, for those of you who've not been, it really is quite a profound experience, punctured and marked and framed, if you like, by prayer, necessary because we should, necessary because we are committed to an important task, and necessary because sometimes when things get frayed and when we face obstacles and when the future isn't clear, it's that boundaried prayerfulness holding us to task which is the most important thing of all. Now, in readiness for that college gathering, I'm so pleased that the Right Reverend Tim Thornton, a bishop with many years of episcopal experience, has agreed to be a facilitator on my behalf to work with you as a diocese, so that your early discernment, your, as it were, wanting to capture who are we and where are we in our life, can find its way onto paper. And that act of discernment is really very, very important. It ought to cover the geography, it ought to cover the history, it ought to cover the parochial configuration, the partnerships that exist between clergy and laity, but there ought also to be cast a hopeful vision of what the future could look like. You know, in your dream, who would we be? What would we do? And in order to get there, what would we need to covenant and agree with each other in order to raise ourselves to the limits of that vision? And so next weekend, Tim will come and will meet with numerous people to enable that discernment to take place. And I'm so grateful to Archdeacon Paul, who has, as it were, with others, with Mr. Tim Llewellyn and others, framed a process that will enable the most extensive consultation that I think a diocese is ever undertaking. It can seem a long time, perhaps, until we arrive in October, but that time will be very well spent. It will be spent in listening, in talking together, in prayerfulness, and in capturing not only the Catholic and apostolic dimensions of what God longs for his church here, but the distinctive and nuanced life that is St. David's. And although the discernment primarily belongs to the college, it's the whole church that chooses its bishops. Of course, it must be a bishop that will fit in. We've used this illustration, those of us who preach, we know this illustration, forgive me if it's somewhat tired. But in the hand-me-downs of former years, when brothers and sisters passed their clothes on to their siblings and they didn't fit, what we need is a bishop who will fit the distinctive clothing of this diocese well and inhabit them seriously and lightly. Seriously, because the task is vital, but lightly, because we don't need a magician, and we don't need perfection or wonder workers. We need people whom I tried to share with you in my sermon, people deeply rooted in human experience, but who know they are loved by God, and being loved by God, like St. Paul, are prepared to pour out their life as a drink offering in his service. In the ordinal, we say that this calling, which is hard, is also marked by joy. And when lived in that way, in the matrix of cross and resurrection, it truly is beautiful and purposeful and well worthwhile. I will be praying for you, of course, and looking to our church to provide you with an overseer, a shepherd, someone who will lead you into the next part of your life together. And I want to reflect now, just for a few minutes, again upon a phrase that has become important to me. It became important when I was once at a wedding, and I didn't know that the person next to me was the former CEO of UK Aluminium. And turning to me, he said, "In the church, do you think strategically?" And I nodded sagely and wisely and told him about how wonderful our strategies were, to which he shook his head sadly. And that was my entry into a world in which we need to align our resources to the depth and wonder of our dreams. My catchphrase is this. It's a very simple one. That a vision without a plan is just a dream. A plan without a vision is just a chore. We need to think big, because the kingdom of God is big, calling us not only into a transformation of our shared life, sisters and brothers drawn together in the love of Jesus, but in our witness to the world. And in a crisis that we're facing, in which it is hard for politicians sometimes to tell the truth about how deep a fix we're in. Today's BBC News headlines telling us that we have failed as a world to meet every single target that we have set ourselves. And the particular professor, whose name now eludes me, says that this is down 100% to human activity. So a church not only that blesses one another, that is prophetic and can speak well to our world, to our politicians, to tell us the things that really matter, that are true, rather than expedient, to enable us to make the decisions which we need to make. And in some sense, your next bishop will need to inhabit the role not only of priest, but prophet, dreaming the dream and calling us together by God's grace into that new future and new reality. So we must dream our dreams, and we must be sure that the future for us is better than our past. Our past informs our future, but we don't want to live in the past, but with a living past, where the joy of Daniel, I had to say Daniel, didn't I? The joy of Daniel, of Derry, of Taylor, as we sang in that beautiful hymn, again leads us. These were the people who, after all, evangelised Wales, didn't they? Cadfan and Co. The people who became venturesome, the people who knew that whenever they went with God, and so they were prepared to go into the dangerous territory. These are the things which we need to crystallise and capture and articulate. And the plan. This is the hard bit, because the aligning of what we need to do to meet our vision is a very hard task. And in my experience as a bishop, I am constantly, like that ship swept by tides and gusts of wind stronger than me, I am knocked off course. And bringing oneself back to the fundamentals, to the things which really matter, that are so very important, is a hard thing. For some of us, it will mean stopping what we're doing and taking a new course. It will take deep resolve, and there will be disappointments, and there will be distracting voices. And holding our nerve to the things which are right, the things that are needful, is a hard task. I've sometimes reflected on this in the context of the Lord's Prayer. Lead us not into temptation. We tend to think of that through a very particular set of eyes. But the temptation is to do what is easy. The temptation is to do what is expedient rather than what is right. I came to faith because some people were courageous enough not only to tell me, but to show me what the love of Christ looked like. And I'd realised that for 18 long years I had been a fool. And that what I had thought this thing called Christianity was, it wasn't like that at all. It was much more like Paul's I want to know the joy of the resurrection. Yes, I want to share in his sufferings, becoming like him and somehow to attain to the resurrection of the dead. It was bigger, better, richer, more glorious than anything I'd ever imagined. And it was because somebody dared to tell me. And so the big picture alignment, it's wonderful that we have our chair of the RB here, because the RB are being really brave and courageous into the life of the church, new streams of funding, not only to secure our future, the bread and butter of our parochial life, but to break new ground, the evangelistic work of sharing Jesus Christ, of doing the prophetic work. Is going to be potentially transformative for our life. And I do believe that our God is the God of 1,000 flowers bloom. There will need a strategy to hold together in one place, crisply, for the sake of accountability. But we ought not ever to pour cold water on the fire of the Spirit. And God will break out and do new things if the resourcing can sustain and nurture it. And there will be things that we have not even imagined might happen if we will let ourselves walk in tandem with God in the way in which we work. This is not far off. The work not only of discerning that this is the right thing, but of putting in place the mechanism by which it will happen is upon us. And in the next year, and there are colleagues here today who have been a part of that hard work, the grafting work, in order to make that happen in a way that's purposeful and coherent, will, I'm sure, be a source of rich blessing for the whole of the Church in Wales. So, the future's not bright and orange. The future's bright with God, because with God, Philippians 4:13, all things are possible. Thanks be to God. Amen.